Hi everybody, this is Joan Vandegreek. I'm a certified public accountant who uses the power of life insurance as a tool to help others create tax-free income, do life and long-term planning, and help others protect themselves from civil indemnification risk. States these days are making changes to qualified immunity. Here in Colorado, we were one of the first states in which police officers no longer had it. So what does this mean to a police officer? Well, part of the challenge is we don't actually have examples yet. It is so new. We've had very few examples of what this is actually going to mean to the police officers. What we have seen is that often police officers have had multiple cases against them in instances where perhaps they were just simply on the job, on the same shift, or during the riots that we recently saw here in Colorado a few years ago. The challenge with that is, right or wrong, these multiple instances don't have a case history as whether or not the police officers are going to be responsible for their judgment on each case or in aggregate. The other piece we're seeing here in Colorado, and states like New Mexico are following, is the unions in some cases may help officers with the cost of those judgments. However, is that just one time in their career? Is that multiple times in their career? How are they going to determine how to apply this rule if they do decide to vote in favor of covering that cost? It is all unknown. The other thing I've seen with my police officers is there have been officers that have retired just on time, as planned, that have had incidences brought up against them because it was just a general riots going on. They basically, anyone who was on shift named all of the officers. It is not that they got involved in an actual personal one-on-one with a suspect. The reality is these officers in their retirement are being brought up and questioned on their actions for those police actions, and potentially are going to be subject to judgments against them even in retirement. And this is all super scary. Many of our officers are facing a ton of uncertainty, and it just does not relieve the pressure of the normal everyday requirements of the job. And coupled with that is the cost of these judgments. In many cases, we're seeing that it could be almost $25,000 potentially per judgment. Now, if you have multiple judgments against you, that cost adds up. If the union's not paying for you, that cost adds up. And here's the reality of it. Those judgments can be placed against any of your personal assets. And we talk a little about personal assets in our other videos. However, what does that mean to you? Well, that could be something that goes against your savings account. That might be a little bit more obvious. But things that are not so obvious, that when you have a qualified immunity and you end up having a civil risk, are things like your 457 plan. Did you know your 457 is not protected? Your pension is, but not your 457. Additionally to that, your assets are not necessarily protected. So what other assets might we have? Well, many officers have their own personal side businesses that have assets like a vehicle or perhaps machinery or tools. Those assets could be at risk. And here in Colorado, those assets are not protected if they're in an LLC. You can still have judgment liens against those LLCs because the LLC in itself is an asset. If you have questions about that, I would definitely suggest talking to an attorney, and we have some suggestions for you there. So, in addition to the 457, in addition to your cash and checking account, what else could they go after? Well, any of your non-service weapons. If they're not a hunting rifle or service weapon, those two are personal assets they can go after and force you to sell in order to get payment on a judgment. Their home. The homestead exemption is not very high here in Colorado. That is something else that they can put a lien against your home, and if you were to go refinance it or sell it, they can potentially collect. If you have rental properties, that's another one. And then lastly, the other one that we often don't think about, and is probably going to be a little bit shocking, is who typically owns our child's college fund. If our child has a 529 plan, they can go against that as an asset, and that's shocking because now not only are they impacting you as an officer, they're going after your family. And so one of the things that we do here at Fetch Your Wealth is we talk a lot about asset protection and asset repositioning. It is super important that not only do you know what assets you have, but you evaluate the civil risk that they can face should something happen. And civil risk is not just unique to police officers. We're seeing fire and paramedics being impacted by it here in Colorado. We're seeing other states adding to the mix, such as New Mexico. There's talk in New York and Connecticut following suit. And eventually the reality is this is going to go to other states in the country. And the reality is we can, with some planning, very simply reposition these assets in order to better serve you against these risks. So if you have any questions, what I encourage is this. Go ahead and check out our retirement inventory. That'll at least give us a starting point to start looking at your assets. And then, once you've done that, book a call with us. Let's sit down, let's look at where these things are, and see what small changes we can do to reposition your assets to provide more protection from civil risk. And that's, don't forget, that's the letter C of our TLC method. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, we encourage you to check out our Facebook. We would love to have you join our community, to join the chat and learn helpful hints on how to maximize your retirement, how to minimize your taxes, how to prevent yourself from civil risk, and just learn in general on how to be a little bit more financially savvy. And if you haven't done so already, we would love for you to like and subscribe and keep watching our videos and check out our library. We have lots of good tips for you. See you all next time.